This is a message from your guides reading for Heart's Prayer. Okay, so I have three crystals here. I don't know which ones are for the group or which ones are for your reading specifically, but I'm going to show them all to you. I'm going to obviously surround us in some protective space first. But this is my rose quartz. Rose quartz. No, it's not. This is my clear quartz. So I'm going to go ahead and surround us in some protective space with the clear quartz. Okay, so I have a guide coming up. So I have my clear quartz, like I said, that's kind of an all-purpose stone. It helps you connect with higher energies. It helps with clearing and a whole myriad of other stuff. And then I have my peacock ore here, and because you can see all these different color variations, this is typically associated with all of the different chakras, working with each chakra, tuning into it, making sure it's aligned properly, working to clear it, working to enhance it, any kind of chakra work really, and also clearing yourself. And then I have my malachite here. So this has to do with psychic protection, with protection in general as well, fortifying your energy field, and also grounding. This is a really good grounding stone as well. So I have a guide coming in. This is looking like a really big Pegasus, actually. So it looks like a flying horse, and he's all white. It's definitely very male, and he has actually an angelic energy with him. Also, it almost kind of feels like a little bit of an archangel type of energy, but he's coming in with this form. And at the same time, I'm almost not sure if there's someone with him. If this is two guides I'm picking up on at the same time, or if this is, no, this is one guide. So I feel like this guide is just having a couple of different energies that he is kind of resonating with or coming in with. But he's more saying that, okay, right. So, I mean, there's like the angelic frequency. You don't have to have a specific form to be on that frequency. This is more feeling specifically like an archangel kind of frequency, though. But his form, he's resonating with this more horse kind of form, this flying horse, Pegasus kind of form. So he doesn't have your typical archangel form the way that they typically come in, whether or not they even actually have that specific form or not. That's, I think of it more like that's how humans identify with them. So if they want to identify themselves as that type of being, they would typically use that form, or maybe some of them do actually really most resonate with or identify with projecting themselves with that form. Or again, it could be just us completely. It could just be humans, our end completely. But he's resonating on that frequency, and he's coming in with this specific Pegasus form, and he's really, really big. Feels like he's taking up a good portion of the room. And he's definitely very, very male. And this is feeling like a primary guide. Okay, so to just explain something really quickly here. So I'm sure you've heard of like power animals. Um, so during some of my readings, I've actually rarely, but I have actually also had plant guides come in. And usually what those guides will say is that everybody has them. Just obviously, humans don't typically relate to plants as much. So maybe they're not identifying with that connection as strongly, or for whatever reason, those types of guides don't typically get through in the same way with the person, or maybe they do, but the person can't recognize it as well. And so they're not the guides that typically come through in a reading. Um, but so in that way, I almost have to think of it as almost like set one, set two, set three in a sense, because it's like you have these kind of humanoid type of guides, even if they're not, sometimes they are really not coming in as humanoid types of guides. So they might be a type of alien that doesn't really have our form, or sometimes it might be some kind of energetic bubble of energy, something like that. But it's still not identifying with an animal or plant kind of form. Okay, so in other words, he's saying that he isn't your only primary guide. So you have two primary guides who you could say are more humanoid, even if they're not coming in that exact form. They're like your main guides, almost in that kind of category in a sense. So he is more like your power animal, and so he's one of your primary guides in this sort of animal kind of category. So I know that might be a little bit confusing there. I hope I said that in a clear way. So usually it's two primary guides that come in, but you might actually have others that have come in during readings, or that come in later on during another reading. But he's still saying two. He's also one of two. So he's one of two primary guides sort of in this category. So he's one of your power animals. And then if you have a lesser one coming in with like an animal form, um, but still like one of your general guides, I would still call that more of like a totem, but coming in as a guide. So not just with a temporary message. So he's also working with like a team with him, but they're animals. They're in more like an animal kind of form. So this is almost like a secondary group, you could think of it. And then again, with like plants, you can almost think of it like a third group that have this different type of form. They might be helping you with things like grounding, protection issues, root chakra issues, healing the earth, your connection with your physical body, or even like life path and things like that, right? So they have different kind of categories that they can really help with. His name has something to do with like a crystal frequency or crystalline um, energies. So he's coming in with crystal. That's something that you can identify with, or use as his name, or a name like that, crystalline. Um, part of what he's meaning by crystal is he sees everything crystal clear. He sees everything really, really sharply. And so there's the sense with him like he knows what to do. He has a very solid foundation, he has a very solid footing. So he's a very good leader. And he has like a lot of inner strength that it feels like you can pull from. When you're calling on him, when you're working on him. So he definitely helps with grounding personally, even if he's not like a plant guide, like I was talking about how that category, some of the things that they can specifically help with, but still you have individuals in every one of these categories that I'm mentioning. And he's the primary guide of this like set. He's one of two primary guides in this set. So he has wings, right? And but at the same time, he's very grounded, and he's equally as comfortable in the air as he is on the land. And he can soar, he can fly all around, he can see everything with this very crystal gaze. I almost feel like his eyes are like very, very well crystal clear, like he's saying, but even um like, for instance, if he had physical eyes, it would be like they can see out at a much further distance than a regular human eye could. And he's very sure footed, he knows exactly what to do, and he's showing me this picture of him where he's standing on top of a mountain. And so the mountain is up very high, but at the same time, it's very deeply grounded, rooted to the ground. It's like boulders, right, that have almost become part of the earth and part of the ground. They sort of make the ground up. They're not going to move anywhere. Even if there was an earthquake or something, that mountain is going to be very firm and very intact. It's not just going to topple over. Like he's saying, like even a tree, for instance, can topple over. But a mountain, even if there's an avalanche or something, you never hear about an entire mountain just toppling over. Even if you were to hear of like a piece of rock falling off, or even several pieces of rock falling off, you're not going to hear about the entire mountain just collapsing on itself or toppling over. So it's very rooted, it's very sturdy. And he's standing on top of it with this very crystal clear gaze and this very sure footing. And he has these very strong wings that can lift him into the air, but at the same time, um, he doesn't lose his way when he gets up there. He doesn't become ungrounded. And he's very sure of himself. He's very, very confident. He has a lot of like healthy self-esteem. He definitely doesn't have any problem with self-esteem or a lack of courage or of knowing who he is or seeing himself clearly. So he has a strong like self-identity and sense of who he is and his purpose and his life plan. So these are all the types of things that he can help you with. I don't feel like I don't like the name crystalline. I don't feel like he's resonating with that as a name. He was describing something. I don't feel like you have to specifically call him crystal only exactly. But I don't really feel like he's resonating so much with saying crystalline. I think it's because that can be a little bit more specific, whereas crystal, it can be a little bit more spread out. You can think of different things, like he's saying, like crystal clear, like gaze or vision. You can also think of the frequency specifically. You can also think of actual crystals, which are more like part of the earth, and that's something I feel like he really resonates with. He's showing me a heart, not a heart. I mean, he's showing me like his heart area, and he's showing me a blue crystal on the inside of it. I feel like this is his heart chakra, but it's actually looking more like it looks more like a light, like kind of crystal blue color is what he's showing me, versus like the typical green, the way that you would normally see a heart chakra. You usually comes in as like pink or green. So he's saying grounding, clarity. He helps specifically with finding your way, um, finding out uh, not only what your path is, but also how to get there, seeing clearly what the steps are to take. Because I feel like you know what the path is, you've always known that. And I feel like you've gotten more clear on that on your own. And then I also know in some readings, they've also clarified certain things about, like even in the last one, about almost their view of kind of where you're going or where you're headed in a sense. Not that that's your only path, but at the same time, imagine all the other things that you could do if you were that free, if you had that kind of lifestyle where you supported yourself in a more open sort of way. And there, even with that kind of lifestyle, there's this balance of being up in the air, kind of, and also being firm on the ground. So there's that sense of freedom and things being very spontaneous, but at the same time, there's that support and financial footing, and groundedness, not only financially, but emotionally, mentally. There's a very stable feeling at the same time. So, going into what they were talking about with your last reading, feels like he can help you almost with goal setting, having like a vision of where you want to be, but then almost putting yourself on the path to achieving it. So you're not kind of lost as to, okay, I have this vision of where I want to go, what I want to do, what my purpose is, type of thing, or what would enable me for my general purpose. But it's like you need to be able to kind of set the steps kind of in motion, um, and see what they are in order to get from A to B, or even A to Z, and to get to the outcome you want. But he's saying that to get from A to Z, there's all the other letters in between. So there's all these other steps in between, um, the beginning and that outcome that you want. And those are all steps. So those are all actions. And he can help you to see clearly what those are. So he wants you basically to call on him, and then first off, just start out by like writing down your goals. You may have done that before, but maybe in like a new way. So Like the words are going to come to you as you're meditating with him. And then you're focusing on this intent and you're putting that out, but then you need to focus on asking more and more, okay, what do I do in order to achieve that and to get there? And be open to receiving that information. And he's saying that you will. So you're going to start receiving that information. And he's also going to help you almost like with the kind of backbone in a sense, this sort of determination to help you get through the actual doing of the steps. Okay, so that's all that he has to say for this reading. So thank you very much for allowing me to do another one for you, and I will see you in the next one. Namaste.